Hey there, fans of brotherly love wrestling. It is I, Vic Delicious.
Philly's own, the Mecca here.
It is the real McCoy, J.D.X. Justin D. Xavier. And
it's your man, CD, the fallen angel, Christopher Daniels.
Hello, boys and girls. This is your old friend RJ City.
Hey there, brotherly love wrestling. Bill Carr here.
Hey everyone, this is two-time guest Wheeler Yuta.
Two bozos from Philadelphia flapping their gums about pro wrestling this, pro wrestling that.
Which is not that unique in the grand scheme of things yet.
You are in for a treat because you're tuned in to Brotherly Love Wrestling.
Philadelphia, are you ready?
No! They said, are you ready?
This is Brotherly Love Wrestling Podcast, your first stop for everything professional wrestling. So sit back and enjoy wrestling talk at its finest with your hosts, Larry Hall and Joe Corrado.
Welcome, everybody, to Brotherly Love Wrestling. And on our show today, we have from the NWA, probably the voice of the NWA, Joe Galli. Joe, welcome to the show.
Larry, Joe, thanks for so much for having me. Brotherly love, I love it. I'm feeling the love today.
So how have you been? We've seen you a lot on NWA Power.
I've heard you a lot.
Yes, of course, we've heard you a lot. We love the NWA USA. I've been watching that a lot. Literally just got done watching the last episode that you guys put out. It's so much fun, especially like when you see guys like Caprice Coleman, because that's one guy that we haven't seen a lot of. So him getting a chance, it was cool to see him wrestle.
Not wrestling. I mean,
yes,
we've seen
exactly.
a lot of them doing commentary for ROH, and that's pretty much been it. I mean, great shape. Mm-hmm. Glad to see him back in the ring.
Yes.
I mean, I like NWA's old school feel to it. That I mean, you can call me dated or whatnot, but I like the whole studio set, the smaller feel, like the more personal feel of wrestling. It brings me back.
It's more intimate. That's what I like to call it. It's more intimate with that crowd that's there, and you see a lot of that with the reactions that we get, especially when guys are at the podium with Kyle, doing interviews with people, and you get those little one-liners, those zingers that are kind of coming from the crowd. And it kind of goes back when you watch old Georgia Championship Wrestling, there's a lot of similarities that are there with that. So it kind of has that feel to it. But at the same time, like you could see the way our shows are and the way our brand is, we're attracting all this incredible talent that sometimes isn't getting featured in places that, you know, maybe they should or they could. Guys like Caprice Coleman, who he certainly is the ageless one. He looks like he's in phenomenal shape. He could be 21 years old if you look at him. Mm-hmm. And the way, especially with the way he wrestles, the way he moves, that jumping Frankensteiner that he does in the corner is just incredible. And, you know, I think a lot of wrestling fans out there, even the more devoted ones, might have never seen Caprice wrestle, and they just know him as the guy who does color next to Ian. Mm-hmm. And he does a fantastic job at that. But I think a lot of people are missing out on just the incredible talent that he has. And a lot of the other wrestlers that we have on NWA USA and on NWA Power. And so it's great that they get to see them with us, and we give them this platform where not only do they get to wrestle, but they have so much freedom with the way that we do things in the NWA that they might not have gotten in other places, or they might not get if they went somewhere else. And I think that that's what they really appreciate. And I think if you talk to a lot of the men and the women in our locker room, they really like the atmosphere that we have, not only when you're in the arena, but in the backstage area and really all around us as a company. And I think that's what's really helping us succeed.
Can I just tell you how much I appreciate that you called that a Frankensteiner?
Well, that's what it is, man. Of course.
Now, what is the difference between Hurricane Rana and Frankensteiner then?
Just depends on what time zone you're in, maybe. But see, I as a commentator, I've always wanted to call it the Frankensteiner whenever it comes off the corner, like whenever it comes off of someone sitting on the apron, whereas it's probably a Hurricane Rana or a head scissors, perhaps. there's always debates on what do you call it an inverted atomic drop or do you call it a Manhattan drop? You could call it both. It has two names. So there's a lot of nuances when it comes to different things out there. And God, I have no idea what you call a diamond cutter these days because everybody's got one and everybody's got a different name for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same as an RKO, but it's not. If you talk to them, the way that they drive them down into the mat is completely different. But it's a cutter is a cutter is a cutter. But I agree with you. But the Frankensteiner, I always thought was when you whip them off the ropes, because I just think of Scott Steiner. That's with the Frankensteiner. He whips them off the ropes and you hit the Frankensteiner.
And I'm sure if he were here, he would tell you that he invented that move. And there's definitely not footage from the 50s that show people doing it.
No,
but according to him, he invented it.
What he has on his side is the math to prove it.
Absolutely. Break it down.
If nothing else, he will keep everyone guessing and confused of the math that he spews out of his mouth.
I think he's got a 33rd and a third chance of getting it right at sacrifice.
But if you add Kurt Angle in there, he's not going to get it right. So
he's not even going to try.
That's the thing I love about wrestling is that it can be the most nonsensical thing, but it can still be entertainment. Entertainment is so broad in wrestling that it makes me appreciate the whole thing, like, and how it's completely like evolved over the years. Because it used to be more. Well, the Attitude Era is my growing up.
Our growing up, yeah.
Our growing up, yes, because we're the same age. The Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. And, I mean, the competition in wrestling, I mean, it was two companies. Nowadays, there's so many companies, I don't even know. I've lost complete count of how many companies there actually are. I mean, I know there's a few televised, but it's ridiculous how much wrestling there actually is today. Like, 15-year-old me, 10-year-old me would have never guessed that there would be this much wrestling to watch and to even think about complaining about it.
And yet that is all we do is we complain about it.
I know. I love bringing this up because I love getting everyone's opinion, especially people that are, I mean, in the business and they're in the know and they live in the now. But I mean, how do you weave through in and out of negativity? Because it's everywhere.
Well, it is everywhere. And I think that, my previous and what was my concurring career in professional wrestling and being a journalist probably helped build that wall inside me, because with that career, you're constantly either surrounded by negativity for, people not being appreciative of what you're reporting, or just people being extra critical of what you're reporting, or just being surrounded by tragedy, like constantly, like all the time. And so whenever you have all this, these banter back and forth, especially online, and you see it a lot on Twitter, and you see a lot of hate from people on Twitter. But at the end of the day, if you really look at the real analytics of it, the people who complain the most probably spend the least. So why would you care about these people that are complaining on Twitter if they were never going to buy a t-shirt anyways, if they were never going to be a part of your all access platform, if they were never going to buy a pay-per-view, or if they were never going to buy a ticket to a show? Why would you give them any oxygen? They could just sit there on their computer and just do whatever they do, and it has no impact on you because they're not really your customer. So I think that that's what we're really seeing in the sport of professional wrestling, whether it's with us in our studio or even guys like Tony Khan. That's, I went to the show here in San Antonio when Thunder Rosa became world champion in the cage match. They filled the Freeman Coliseum full of people, and that's a rodeo arena. So you've got a lot of interest in there, and you have a lot of customers that you have to cater to, and you just don't cater to the trolls because they're not going to spend the money anyways.
Why does it feel like? Why is it? I feel like it's always been this way. Is that everyone likes to see a car crash? Everyone likes the negativity. It attracts more. I mean, that could be said about anything, any profession, whatever it may be, for the most part.
Well, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, that to go back to my journalism background, if it bleeds, it leads. So if you have something there that's tragic and, it's something you can talk about. It used to be when I was working in Southern California as a journalist, if there were wildfires, you always sent somebody to the wildfire, even if it probably didn't impact a lot of homes, because the math has shown that when people are seeing fire on their television, even if it's just burning a bunch of random trees 300 miles from their house, they don't change the channel. So people like that destruction and they like that sort of thing. And then it also bleeds into the other things where some people get really invested in just seeing botches,
I hate that.
I do too.
Hate it.
Especially for, really minor things and you're laughing at somebody and it's like, I don't think people understand how difficult the job is and you don't get an extra take. And it's like, how many botches do you think there are in every Marvel movie that's ever made, but you never have to see them because all you see is a cut, edited, finished product.
You know how many missed blocks you see in football? Or any sport where we had Ben Simmons on our team for a few years and that guy couldn't hit a free throw. But I mean, that's the thing is like, it's crazy. Like botches, like, how is that in any way, shape, or form helping anything? Like, it's helping that singular person get attention that they desperately are seeking.
Yeah, I think it's really a sad state of where we are, maybe as a society as a whole, because we kind of latch onto these things and you get involved in all of these different battles with people. And you could see it when it comes to gun violence, politics, war, gas prices. Everybody can put their 2 cents in. I think maybe COVID maybe even made that worse because people were so isolated and they even further than, the technological divide that we have that kind of separates us as people. When we had that exacerbated by people staying home and we're telling people to stay away from human beings. And then you just get to go and be the worst version of yourself at home. And on Twitter or on Reddit is just awful. I mean, the only places that is worse than maybe the YouTube comment section of any video where people just feel the right to just be horrible human beings and say something they would never say in person. It's sad. But I have a feeling like, you see it in society throughout the ages, these things kind of come and go. And so we're just going to see where the technology kind of brings us to where maybe we'll start pulling back from this and maybe we'll just start being good to one another. And I would like to see that. I'd like to see shows like yours where we talk about the love of whatever you're passionate about, whether it's wrestling or football or cooking or TikTok dances or whatever it is. we could all support ourselves and the things that we're interested in, and we don't have to get ugly about it. And I would think that would make the better, society for us to live in for sure.
I mean, I could do bad TikTok dances if that's enjoyable.
That's
to
fine.
other.
Apparently those do well too. So
yeah, I mean,
can't win for losing.
If that's enjoyable to other people, sure, I will make a complete ass out of myself for the sheer enjoyment of everybody else. But me, I have thick skin where someone that I will never meet ever could not affect me in any way, shape, or form. It just doesn't make sense to me in any way. But to spin what we were just talking about, the negative, let's bring it back to the positive. How do you utilize all this social media to your advantage for NWA? And how do you make it must see, or how do you make it bigger than it is?
Well, I think what's really helped us is we not only have this great partnership with Fight where people get first runs and all the pay-per-views and stuff, but we're seeing a real explosion of interest on our YouTube channel, especially just recently following the Always Ready pay-per-view and now going into NWA 74. We're really seeing things kind of snowball. And a lot of that has to come down to the analytics and going through things. And we've got people on our team that are a lot smarter than me in those respects that figured out what these platforms are looking for and how we can best utilize them. It's not as much as you just need to throw up as many videos as possible or post as many pictures as possible or have as many hashtags as possible. There's a science to each one of these different social media platforms. And thankfully, we've hired on some really good people that have really helped navigate us and have us really build a lot of momentum that's going to help us grow, especially in 2023, where you're going to see a lot of really big strides in the National Wrestling Alliance, and you're going to expect to see us to do more live events in the coming year as well. And we can only do that because of the interest that's been garnered through our different social media channels, whether it's YouTube or our Twitter page or our Facebook page or even our TikTok page and stuff. That's all growing really well. And the other thing that we have that's so amazing is just the other talent that we have here, with everybody in pro wrestling for the most part being independent contractors. You have to get kind of smart to that, and you have to find ways to be able to talk to your audience and find new audience and expand it. So they're all running the same game. And so you could see the people who are making the most success out of it and really just kind of ask them for advice and ask them for help and see where things are going. And then there's people that, you wouldn't expect Ricky Morton to be very good at social media, but he's fantastic. And a lot of his stuff trends and it gets put in articles and the guy gets it. And I was talking with Carrie, his son. I was like, so what? What's the deal? You're running this. He's like, nope, it's all my dad. He's on the phone all the time. He's like, I can't get him away from it. He's got it. And he's like, my dad's way better at me than that stuff. So you see all these unexpected surprises from people out there. And that's really helped growing not only our business, but I think it really helps grow the sport as a whole. I think a rising tide lifts all ships. So the more good wrestling that we can have out there, the better it's going to be for the entire industry, So it just kind of shines a better light on everybody and gets people to be interested in wrestling who may have fallen out of pro wrestling. Maybe they're our age. I'm 35. So, there's probably I know a lot of my peers were into the Attitude Era. And, John Cena came along and they stopped watching wrestling. And now they just kind of see some clips on Twitter. They never actually watch Raw or SmackDown or any of the other shows. But if we could start putting more stuff out there and really target audiences for it, you can expand that audience and get them back to where, wrestling, as mainstream as it is right now, it's nowhere near the mainstream level that it was in the 70s and the 80s. And the different territories that were there and the TV deals that you were having with those and these, being able to sell 8,000 tickets on a Tuesday night to a show that doesn't go on television, that would be very difficult to do now without some really big name talents. But we could start growing that mass appeal back and bringing those people in. And of course, bringing in the next generation of fans out there that may only be enjoying this sort of content on platforms like TikTok and Snapchat that probably don't have an interest in watching a 3-hour wrestling program, but we could still create enough content and get them in as a viewer, get them in as a customer, and then sell them on something that they will actually, throw some money at, which is, at the end of the day, it's a business. That's what it's all about.
I think that's what people forget to realize is that wrestling is a business and you're doing this for the greater good of your company, as opposed to a few opinions that people might have. But I liked what you said about like 35. I'm 35. Larry will be 35 in 2 weeks. So we're all roughly the same.
Happy birthday,
age.
Larry.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
There, see, I did
There you
something good for you. But for me, and this probably wasn't the case when I was younger in the Attitude Era and whatnot, but on the bigger shows, I feel like there's too much going on for me to actually be able to take all in and just to focus on. Like, there's a lot that goes on. Like, I have no problem sitting down for an hour. Like, there's also a lot more going on in my life where I can't just sit down for 3 hours and be like, all right, at night and not fall asleep. But like, my sweet spot is like an hour, 2 hours max, where I'll be like, all right, I can actually sit down and digest what's happening. Like, I just feel like it's all over the place now. Like with NWA, you're getting a solid hour of just concentrated wrestling, and then you're getting promos off to the side where it's easy to follow. It's like, it's almost like, it's not elementary, but it kind of is in a way where it's easy for the viewers to actually sit down and be like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what the story is being told in the ring or outside of the ring. This is what this person said. Like, I feel like just like mainstream, like WWE, AEW, I feel like it's all over the place, and you're just trying to keep track of like, I'll just watch one thing I'd be like, all right, I want to see what they're going to do and they're going to do, and everything else I'll just kind of let it fall by the wayside.
I think it's interesting you bring that up because just before we got on to record this podcast, I was scrolling through Twitter, and one thing was a video that someone posted of an interview Triple H did, I think back in 2015, where he said the hardest part of his job when he was doing talent relations, which he's now once again doing, was filling that third hour of Raw was the most challenging thing. And he would prefer it to be 2 hours. So now with the changing of the guard that you're seeing in WWE, I'm kind of anticipating that maybe that's something that could happen. It's arguable that it probably won't just because of the amount of money that they're making from advertisers on that last hour. But if they could kind of also try to change their product to try to bring in more of an audience, so they're not just getting, 1.5 or 1.8 million, but they could go back to getting much higher numbers than that by having a tighter product that is easier to follow. And maybe a little edgier. And, I'm really interested to see what they might actually do with NXT, because I was a big NXT fan when it first started in the black and yellow brand. And now I'm not as interested in it. And so it's going to be interesting to see where that goes from there. But to your point, I think everyone's attention spans are very, very limited at this point. And so you really have to figure out how to adjust your product, whether you're making an hour long or a large wrestling program, a drama for HBO, or even a 30-second commercial. You have to figure out a way to make that hit and have it be memorable for people and really have people want to be invested in whatever it is that you're doing. And that's a really tricky part right now with the way that everybody's sort of evolving and what they're looking at and what they're doing day to day. So it's going to be, what I like to think is, so we're in a great place where you can experiment with things.
Yes.
And we could try different things. We recently in the NWA, we started a secondary YouTube channel that we're calling NWA Extra. And the reason we did that was so that we have a place where we could throw some experimental stuff without hurting any of the analytics with our tried and true, NWA page that'll have power, and then we'll have NWA USA. And that's going to give us a little leeway to see what sticks, what works, what doesn't work, and it won't end up hurting us financially while we do it. So it's all just finding strategies like that. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see not only what we do going forward, but what all the players are going to be doing going forward. And there's a huge marketplace for it. I mean, I'm sure, they're going to fill up whatever stadium they're going to for SummerSlam, and they're going to fill up whatever stadium they're going to go to for WrestleMania, and tickets are going real fast for us in St. Louis. So the interest is there. It's just making sure that we can hold on to those interests when they're sitting on the couch or sitting on a bus or, not paying attention at work. Like those are the people that we need to get because we're going to get them when they come in the door. Those are hardcore fans and they want to see a wrestling show. It's just getting all those other casual people to come along and to be a part of that journey as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one thing that we were fortunate enough to be a part of that I thought separated the NWA right away for us was the Circle Squared that the NWA did. And we were fortunate enough, like I said, to do the watch along and be featured on that show. And it was such a cool idea to just reach out to wrestling fans, reach out to podcasts, reach out to all people, and just watch their reaction to it. Because a lot of times, even when if you're watching a movie or a comedy and you see another person crack, or you see them go after a joke and it cracked them and it messed them up, it's funny to you. It makes you laugh. So if you're watching a wrestling show and you're seeing people talk about it, people react to the bumps, react to the heels, it makes it better for you. It makes it more interesting for you because now you're with that person and you're feeling that same emotion. I think that's a really good thing NWA does across the board, whether it is Power or USA, because it's just like Joe said, that hour, the studio wrestling, which is a throwback that I think it's simple, but it's clean and it's so much fun to watch.
And I'm glad you brought up Circle Squared because we're experimenting with new ideas on how to do that now. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different platforms out there like Twitch and things like that, where you can get that immediate reaction, and not everybody needs to be in the same room. Like when you used to watch Mystery Science Theater 3000 and you've got the row of guys in the front seat, but we could do it in a more digital landscape and have everybody kind of be a part of that conversation. That's something that we're experimenting with right now. And the other advantage that you have with studio wrestling is visually what we get out of it, because of the cameras we're using and the control that you have in that small, intimate environment, it looks really good. And, from a price point perspective, it's pretty affordable to do. And so when you're able to do that and you're looking for advertisers and you're looking for different things, it's really something that a lot of platforms out there would be exciting for us to have, because at the end of the day, there's a reason. One of the reasons why you see so much reality TV out there, and one of the reasons why your local news is in all these major time slots, is because it's the affordable television to make. I mean, that's really why you have news at 5 and 6 and 10. It's not just because people are interested in watching news at that time. It's because television stations know that this is the most affordable thing that we can make. It's also local, that people are going to have an interest in. So if you could take something that people have an interest in and do it for a reasonable amount of money that you're going to make a lot more in revenue from, then you've got something that's going to work. And that's why you see so much reality TV out there, because it makes a ton of money and doesn't cost nearly what it takes to make an episode of Blue Bloods or anything like that. So it's just finding out how to make that work in the wrestling world too.
I mean, pretty much, if you think about it, you guys have the simplest formula. I mean, you don't got crazy amount of pyro or any pyro. I mean, you're doing it in front of a live studio audience. It's almost like a sitcom for wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I like that about ours, because we're able to go ahead and tell stories. Our head of talent relations, Pat Kenny, who fans might know as Simon Diamond from back in the TNA days and ECW days, he has a phrase that he uses all the time, which is, it's not rocket science. We know what works. We know what people are interested in seeing. They want to see good athletes have good matches and incredible characters and good stories that go along with those. So if we could just focus on those bare essentials that are there, it doesn't matter if it's in Madison Square Garden or if it's at Skyway Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. We can make a product that's going to be very appealing to people on a screen internationally. And that's what we're really going for right now. That's the other great thing that we have here digitally, is we're seeing a lot of interest for what we're doing in NWA in Europe. We're seeing it in Asia. We're having a lot of places work out. We've recently had conversations with promoters down in Australia that want us to go down there for that as well. So there's so much interest, not only here in the States, but around the world, for what we're making. And that's what's really exciting, especially for what you're going to see coming up in 2023 and beyond.
So if you go and you travel across the world, does it stay the studio? Is it still going to be studio wrestling in different countries? Because that's an amazing
if you think about it, every major city, no matter what country you're in, probably has a local television studio, because the format for television that America created has basically just been copied in all over the world. If you go to Sydney, Australia, they're going to have their local news at 5 and 6. And if you go to Japan, it's the same thing there. So it's the same format throughout. And, we can take certain venues and make them television studios, and adjust that space to where it's similar, but a little different, and maybe just has a slightly different vibe. I'd like to think of that as for our power trips that people have seen recently out of Oak Grove. It's at this venue called Valor Hall, which I'm sure 99% of the time is used as a wedding venue. But we've been able to go in there, put a ring in, and by the way we set everything up, the crew that we bring in and the technology we use, we could still put together an amazing television experience there that's similar to what we do with studio wrestling, but at the same time incorporating a lot of that feel and a lot of that energy that you get from a live event that you would go to with your regular indie show, maybe down the street. So we kind of get the best of both worlds with it, which is what's really interesting. So that's what's great about the NWA, is the way we've designed ourselves is we're very efficient with the team that we have. And it's very easy for us to pick up that whole team and go to Atlanta and do it here, and then go to Nashville and do it here, and then go to Oak Grove, Kentucky, and then maybe places like New Orleans or Baltimore or Los Angeles, New York. It doesn't matter, because we know how to be able to build that small infrastructure that we need in order to create the product that we want.
All right, so I have a tricky question. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it. And I want to word this. Now, I'm going to word this how it is in my head, and don't take offense to it. But is there any fear in growing? Like, is there any fear of like maybe growing too large out of this format and fear of it not working or getting bigger than you want to too quick? Because I mean, if you strike iron and you just skyrocket, is there any fear of that happening? Like, because then you lose your comfortability, because this is what you've got right now. But if you were to get a couple talents here and there and really like just blow past any expectations, I mean, is there a fear of growing too quickly?
No, especially not at this point right now, because I think we're still playing catch up from where we had to leave off because of the pandemic. And that gave us a lot of opportunities to kind of refigure what we want and adjust how we're going to be moving forward. So we're on a really good trajectory right now. And I don't think anything would really change that product that much, because when people are investing in the product, they know what they're getting. So theoretically, let's say somebody went to Billy Corgan, and let's say they're a big cable network somewhere and they want to have us be exclusive on that cable network. I think what they'd be buying is something that's the same feel. They'd be buying into what we're already creating, and they wouldn't want to upset the apple cart and change everything that we have. Also, that's the advantage of having, kind of that divining rod that is Billy Corgan at the top, where it's a committee of one, and we all could go there and we could tell him our opinions, but it's at the end of the day, it's his business. And so he's really got an idea and a vision, and we're always adjusting that vision based on what we're able to do and what fans want to see, but also what he thinks would be marketable. And so we've really created something that is marketable and is doing quite well. And I don't see us, in the very near future doing a weekly show, run in the same building as AEW or anything like that. What we're making is something that's very different. And I think it's going to kind of bring in a whole different sort of vibe, and it may be a different audience too. So we'll see where we go, but I certainly don't have any fear of us succeeding in the future. I mean, that's the end goal that we all want. And yes, there have been definite examples that you could look at where having so much expansion so quickly ended up biting people in the rear end. You could look at TNA, maybe had that issue, WCW having that issue, but I don't see any billionaires stepping up to throw a bunch of money at us either. So as long as we kind of keep this going as, our boutique industry, that our boutique business that we have in this sport and in this industry, I think that we're going to be growing at a rate that's going to continue to keep us going. I mean, you have to keep in mind, just a few years ago, there really wasn't that many people involved in the office, really. It was kind of maybe two guys. And now we've really expanded that to several people. And we're seeing a lot of growth because of that, and because we're bringing in people with expertise. But Billy Corgan also didn't go and get 100 people in an office building and have us all, move to Connecticut or something to try to fill that building. So I think what we're growing is at a really good rate, and it's going to be really interesting to see where we go.
All right. So being that you run a very particular style, do you guys have to be more particular with who you want to bring in, or is it pretty much an open door policy?
Well, the door is definitely open for anybody who wants to see if there's an interest there. And much like running any business, there's so many different minutiae that go into who we hire, who we can't, if they have contracts somewhere, if their rate is more than we can afford, or more than we think that person would be worth as far as an investment for us. So there's a whole bunch of different things out there, but we've seen it, you got guys out there like Matt Cardona is just, wildfire all over the place, comes to the NWA, becomes our world heavyweight champion. And so you're going to get diamonds like that are just going to want to come to you and be attracted to our sport and our brand because of what we do. But what's also interesting is so many of our homegrown talents, a lot of guys that had never been on television anywhere else before, and have really kind of come into their own and have become stars in the NWA and really a lot of other places too, because now that they're in the NWA, they get seen more. Independent bookers want to, have them travel out of state and go and work a bunch of other shows. Guys like Magic Jake DeMoss, Mims, all of our Alex Taylor, Rush Freeman, a lot of these younger guys that, didn't really get a chance to shine anywhere, but have kind of risen through the ranks with us and are now a commodity in the sport of professional wrestling. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forward in different wrestlers that we have developing on our roster, but also the ones that might be coming in that maybe, haven't gotten that shot. Like a Joe Alonzo might be a good example of that as well. I mean, every time we put him in a match, our social media teams, they're blown up by everybody talking about how great this kid is, and they want to see more Joe Alonzo. And so I hope he sticks around is what I'd like to say. So, but it's having that there. And, we've been very welcome to a lot of, people that have been cast aside by a lot of other companies, a lot of people who were fired by WWE or let go for one reason or the other, but they really found a place and a home with us. And they love being there. And that's what I like about like our little island of misfit toys. Sometimes it turns out to be something that we can just take people and utilize their talents in a way that maybe they weren't just utilized correctly before. And we can really make them a success and in turn make us a success.
Yeah. Sometimes having a chip on your shoulder can work in someone else's advantage because they have something to prove, or they feel like they have something to prove in it. And they work that a little harder to show everybody what they've got. And I know there's probably a lot of former ROH talent that's probably going to be out there as well, because it seems like AEW pretty much took their pick of the litter for who they wanted, and a lot of them weren't even the original ROH guys, but a lot of those guys will need a home soon too, and girls. So, I mean,
no, and believe me, there was a ton of talent in Ring of Honor. Just look at, for instance, Kyle Davis, formerly Kyle Durden of ROH, who's now our, main interviewer, and all the other talents that we have coming in. Rhett Titus, another good example of an ROH guy who's, I know he's gunning for gold here in the NWA, and if anybody could do it, it's Rhett. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. And so there's going to be, and that's the other thing that happens in this sport, as you guys see, there's always ebbs and flows. And WWE wasn't too long ago fired 20 people on the same day or whatever, and so it allows these talent multiple times, and allows those people to try to find new homes. And a good example of that could be Trevor Murdoch, a guy who worked for WWE, former tag team champion with them, gets let go, and spends a couple of years trying to figure out where he needs to be, and he has that chip on his shoulder. And he's had that chip in his shoulder become a boulder that he's now carried up a hill to become a two-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And the Trevor Murdoch that we're seeing now in the ring is a grizzled, angry vet who knows, there's only so many hours left on that clock. There's only so many bumps that I could take. I'm going to go at this as hard as I can. I'm going to make Harley Race proud, and I'm going to hold on to the 10 pounds of gold for as long as humanly possible. And the other thing that you get out of that are these incredible matches that you see from a guy like Trevor Murdoch, who was always, violent and athletic, despite what his body type might be. But just the level of athleticism that you're seeing with him, just every punch that he's throwing, every clothesline, every bulldog that he does off the top rope, it all just has that little bit more impact that you expect to see from somebody who's at the top of the mountain. And I think that that's what's really interesting to see, is the evolution that people can go through with that.
And I'm glad you brought up Trevor Murdoch, because that's one person I think that has stood out for me watching the NWA, especially more recently, the story with him and Matt Cardona. That juxtaposition between Matt Cardona and Trevor Murdoch, it was such a good thing to watch, because you watch a Matt Cardona who's Mr. Internet, Mr. Twitter, all over the place, the internet champion. And then you have Trevor Murdoch, who
doesn't care at all.
I mean, social media, you could care less. But the way he carries himself, and like you said, the body image of a pro wrestler, that's not Trevor Murdoch, but he gets the job done. What he does in the ring, the way he does it in the ring. And now, like you said, another former WWE guy, Tyrus, coming up at NWA 74. Those two, and they're like, he's not a small dude, Trevor. He's a big guy. And then going up against an even bigger guy, Tyrus, like that's two big dudes going at it for that 10 pounds of gold. And that's a giant match for that card.
I agree. And I think that that's the other thing that makes us really stand out when you compare us to, your AEW/ROHs of the world is our heavyweight division. There's a lot of big dudes in our heavyweight division. Guys like Harry Smith and Jack Stain and Chris Adonis, Tyrus, Trevor Murdoch. I mean, the list goes on. Nick Aldis, of course. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are big athletic guys. And I think that that's always the challenge that I have as, when I'm calling some of these matches and we get some of our mid-card guys and they happen to be wrestling some of our larger dudes. And it's like, I have to remind people that Rush Freeman is, 6'2" and almost 200 pounds. And when he goes up with the match against Jack Stain, he almost looks like a child because we've got these monstrous men out there. And at the end of the day, if you really look at what people are interested in as far as main event matches or big matches, they want to see a star. They want to see an athlete. They want to see somebody out there that's larger than life. And part of that is actually being larger than life and standing out and being bigger than the average person. So I think that that's what really kind of helps us stand out when you just kind of look at our talent roster and what we have. So I think that that's also something that's really exciting for us is not only do we have that, but our junior heavyweight division is also got some incredible athletes. And our junior heavyweight division goes up to 225 because we had so many people that, they're just bigger junior heavyweights. They could still fly, but they're heavier dudes. And we didn't want to cut them out. So that's why we have our setup the way we have it. And it really shows what we've got. And it really facilitates us to have that diverse roster and to have those big monster matchups that we're going to have, like our main event at NWA 74, but also allows us to show some of the other athletes out there that don't have that size, but it also may have been cast aside for not having the size. You got guys out there like Black G's, who is a fantastic manager in Idolmania Sports Management. He's also an incredible wrestler, but I don't think anyone ever in those other companies would have ever given him a shot because of his height. But he's really proven himself to have the character, have the charisma, have the strength, and also have the skill to wrestle in the ring. So when we put him in there and he has a match with Homicide and they go for 17 minutes and he pushes Homicide to the limit, I mean, it shows the athleticism that he has. And it really shows that we can have the best of both worlds and not have to just pick one.
All right. So I feel like there's been sort of a breath of fresh air or a resurgence, if you may, in tag team wrestling. I feel like not on WWE's end. I feel like they've kind of brushed traditional tag team wrestling to the side. But
well, it's just Usos as Street Profits. That's all I ever see. Usos as Street Profits. Usos as Street Profits.
You said it. You said it.
I don't even know.
You said it, not me. You said it. I didn't say it. You said it, not me. I mean, Triple H had a good thing going with NXT, Black and Gold, the original NXT. But I feel like AEW has really cemented itself into having a fantastic tag team division and more than capable enough to putting on stellar matches. ROH kind of was the same way. How important is it to have tag team wrestling, and will it be a staple in the NWA?
Absolutely, like unequivocally. So one of our biggest shows, as far as what we saw, through pay-per-view buys, was the Crockett Cup. And so the interest in good tag team wrestling is out there, even for people who say that it's not.
It's
and
my
I think
favorite.
the thing,
yes,
and that's the other thing you saw with ROH. As great as all those matches were, what's the one match everybody wanted to talk about was Briscoe's FTR, and because you've got two of the best going at it, and I hope we get to see more Briscoes. I really do. Whether that's with us with the NWA as winners of the Crockett Cup, or even just on AEW/ROH, whatever it is they're going to do over there. Tag team wrestling is super important. And that's why, we had to add, the US tag team title, which we're going to be crowning new champions at NWA 74, because we have such a large tag team division, and we need to be able to feature these people and feature these teams more. And it also gives us an opportunity to try to entice a lot of these teams that are available out there to come out and to compete for not just the world tag team titles, but also for the US tag team titles, which were held by, so many fantastic tag teams in the past. And so we're really going to get that opportunity, and we're really going to feature that more going forward, because we want to make sure that, our second biggest grossing pay-per-view every year is going to most likely continue to be the Crockett Cup. People love it. They want to see what the top tag team is. People like filling out brackets. I don't know if anybody notices that in March. I don't really care for college basketball. I still fill out a bracket. So people like to do that. And so and we've got so many good teams here in the NWA, and there's a lot of good teams out there. As you mentioned in AEW, they have so many different factions and groups that have tag teams within those factions. And I really do like how their tag team division has really evolved. And I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up bringing a trios belt over there as well, because I know Tony he likes all kinds of different championships out there. It's almost surprising to me that he hasn't done that already, because he's got a lot of teams out there with 3 individuals in them. So, I think people do, even if they don't admit it, they like tag team wrestling, especially if it's done right. And
Absolutely,
I think that
yes.
might be the problem that you have.
If you weren't going to say it, I was going to say it.
You have to do it, and the other thing I like about the NWA, what makes my job as a commentator easier, is we put a lot of emphasis on our referees have power. They don't just dance around and wait to count to 3. We don't have a lot of matches that are no disqualification. We do a lot of matches where you have to fight within the parameters of rules. And that gives us a lot of opportunities to have good tag team wrestling. I'll see it a lot, especially if you watch a lot of independent shows out there that, maybe aren't on TV, they're streaming on the internet or whatever. They've got these tag team matches, and you just got 2 guys in there for, a minute and a half. It's like nobody's made a tag. Nobody understands what's going on.
It's like a tornado tag match.
It's right, but when it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to do that, you should do it with a purpose. And if every match is going to be a point where there are no rules, there's no foundation. So what do you build upon? There's nothing there. It falls apart and you lose interest. And so you see that a lot. And when referees are just letting things go, or you're sitting there as a fan going, where's the disqualification? Where's this? So then it takes away from that. Why are they still in the ring? So our referees, and I hope a lot of your fans out there notice out there, we really enforce that 5 count. We make sure that people hold on to tag ropes.
Tag ropes, man.
Tag ropes. It's not hard. It's not hard to find white shoelaces to put on it. It ain't rocket science. Just put them on the side, make people hold them. Tag someone's hand.
And
or
it could
at least
be
their arm.
It could be the simplest stories too in tag team wrestling, where it's a power struggle, and there's always that time where someone's going for that tag and it's stopped, and that's when you have that crowd. That's when you have the crowd.
That's when you build the interest for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think maybe the reason why people say they don't like tag team wrestling is because they don't get to see a lot of good tag team wrestling.
I think that's why FTR's matches are always the best matches. Not for nothing. I mean, I'm biased because they're probably my favorite wrestlers going right now because of the quality of everything that they've done over the past year or so has been amazing. But not probably longer than a year. But I mean, it's that. I mean, it's wrestling simplified. I might show my age. It's more old school, but it's still a new school spin on old school wrestling. But old school
the foundation's there.
What has worked before will work again.
I'm going to go back to my quote from Pat Kenny. It's not rocket science. And if we could build drama and we can get people interested to the point to where when that baby face makes that tag and here comes the hot tag, people are throwing babies in the air. They're excited. They want to see it, like they're on their feet. That's what you want. And that's what you can get out of tag team wrestling. And that's the advantage you have. Some people might think tag team wrestling, oh, you got a bunch of guys, so you put them together. And so you could see more guys wrestle at the same time. It's like, no, it's a whole different dynamic in the way that you're supposed to be interacting with the crowd and getting reactions from the crowd and telling an exciting story. And if you can have, a good foundation with that, then you can go ahead and continue on with that. And I hope that people are going to be able to see that in NWA 74 when we're going to have, our tag team championships will obviously be defended. A lot of that's being worked out at who's going to be the main challengers for that. And we're also going to be crowning the new U.S. tag team champions. And we're also, look, there's a time and a place for everything. And so one thing that, I'll say, because I don't want people calling me out on it, is for our women's division, our women's tag team champions, Pretty Empowered, they're going to be defending against the Hex. And this has been such a bitter feud where they've been cheated time and time again. Well, now it's the King's Highway street fight that's going to be happening inside the Chase for those women's tag team championships. But there's a reason why we got here. It's not because, hey, we want to have a street fight. Mm-hmm. It's because we've had all these issues with all of this cheating from Pretty Empowered, especially with Ella Envy. We need to be able to settle this in a way to where that's not going to be a factor.
It's a means to an end.
Exactly. It's what essentially what one might call a blow off between two teams, because we've reached a point to where we have to be there. It's the same reason why you put people in a cage, or you put them in some sort of hardcore match, or you do a bull rope match, or you do something to where there's going to be a big stipulation for it. It can't just be because I want to have it.
Yeah.
You can't I just want to have barbed wire everywhere. Well, I just want to have contact. I just want to do this. No, there should be a reason for it. Mm-hmm. And to Jericho and Eddie Kingston's credit, that did at least build from something.
Yeah.
I don't know where it continues to go, but apparently it never will end.
It went several different directions where there was all different stipulation matches, and somehow we took a turn to a barbed wire everywhere match.
And boy, was it everywhere. I feel bad for John Roberts, who had to have the barbed wire microphone. It's like, who sold him on that?
For what? For what?
It's everywhere, Larry.
It's everywhere. They should have wrapped the fans.
That's right.
Everywhere.
Barricades.
The fans in it.
Yep.
I think the people in the first row might have been down for it. You ask some fans out there, be like, yeah, wrap me. So
5 minutes later, there's a lawsuit.
Exactly. But yeah, tag team wrestling, if it's done right, brings people in and makes money.
So the one thing that's very interesting about those, like this match, we keep saying about tag team titles, but this is a battle royal. This isn't your traditional, 4 teams, 4-corner match that you're getting multiple teams. This is a battle royal for tag team titles, which I don't ever remember seeing. I mean, am I wrong? Have you ever seen a battle royal?
Is it a battle royal, or are we doing a gauntlet for that, or we're going to have teams come out?
Is that what it is? Because I've seen Battle Royal.
Is it Battle Royal? Okay, well, I see the other thing.
No, wait. We're not going to
Invitational.
I'm not correcting you. I'm asking you. It was listed as a Battle Royal.
Put people on the spot, damn it.
It was listed as a Battle Royal when I read it. But if it's a gauntlet, that's even better. I'm more excited.
That makes more sense. But if it's a Battle Royal,
either way, you have to give a bunch of teams an opportunity, and we really want to crown a champion in one night. Mm-hmm. So whether it's a battle royal or gauntlet, we kind of have to do something in that style.
Yeah.
And the card's always subject to change. So it's going to be interesting to see what we're going to do going forward.
Either way, it does leave the door open for surprises.
It does.
Yeah.
Gauntlets and battle royals. Both.
It's a start of something.
Yep.
And we're, it's a 2-day pay-per-view, and then we have a series of tapings that we're going to be doing in Nashville as well, where we're going to be continuing on with that story. So we'll see exactly where we go from there, or where we're able to go from there, and what alliances are made, or what teams might fall apart. You never
dangerous
know how that's
alliance,
really going to go.
so to speak.
Dangerous alliance between stuff. Do you have a handshake deal between two teams? Eliminate everybody else. It comes down to those two with the idea that, you know, whoever wins, you know, we get a rematch the next night or something like that, you know. So you could
That's
come up
old
with a whole
school.
bunch of different things.
I like it.
Yeah.
Either way, when it happens, the time will be now for those titles for sure.
And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what it's going to be, and I'm excited for the reaction for it too. And I think that's the other great thing is we're getting so much good press out there for the things that we're doing and the matches that we're having, and how we've got all of our, you know, last year we had Empower on one night with all the women's matches and then just one women's match the next night. But our women's division's so big right now, and we couldn't just put it all on one night. Otherwise we'd have to have an extra long show. So we have to spread it out over both nights and have empowered matches over the course of NWA 74. And so we're going to see a lot of interest that's built with that. And there's just so much different stuff out there. I can't tell you how many requests I get, you know, not just from gentlemen like yourself, but all kinds of print journalists, you know, the local newspaper, you know, the talk radio show hosts that are in St. Louis. They want to talk about the show and they want to talk about what we're bringing and how things are different. And of course, us just wrestling at the Chase. That was always what was so big, that we were bringing it back after so many decades, to having wrestling at that venue that was like really an epicenter of St. Louis, that was such a hotbed for professional wrestling for so long. And if you look at the way St. Louis has evolved just as a city, you know, its peak population was actually sometime in the late 60s, early 70s. And then people started to move away from St. Louis from there. And it's actually gone on a steep decline as far as population growth. And so you're also going to see interest in other sporting events and things like that also drop off as well. But for us to be able to go back to this venue, for them to be excited to have us back, for us to try to bring in maybe a little bit of a new look and a new feel for it, try to add some more seats to that venue, because that was the other problem we had, is we sold out of seats, but there was more space. So we got to make sure we have enough seats. We got to fill that room to as much as the fire marshal is going to allow.
Bring your own seats match.
Bring your own seats. Well, no, because then people will start throwing them.
Yeah. That's happened
exactly.
before.
Yeah, it does. So we really just want to be able to cultivate all that and to get that excitement from not only, you know, wrestling fans like yourself, but just really people within these communities. And that's the other thing that we've been doing, is we've been doing an awful lot of outreach with our NWA Cares initiative. You know, when we were in Knoxville, we partnered with the Children's Hospital. We had our champions go and they visited these kids that wouldn't have been able to go and see the show in person. We were partnering with the Boys and Girls Club in St. Louis to do a lot of cool stuff with them to make sure that, you know, these kids can come in, you know, if they're coming from, you know, disadvantaged families or things, we want to make sure that they can come in and enjoy themselves, maybe get a little free piece of merchandise, you know, just like little things that help make memories and make things better for people. We also do a lot of stuff where we do partnerships with veterans organizations and first responders to give them a whole lot of other perks and benefits, because we want to make sure that we're inclusive to people, especially those that have made so many sacrifices for this country, for us to be able to have this wacky world of professional wrestling, for us to enjoy it. You know, we want to be able to show that we care about those people. And what that does is that really helps us build bridges in these communities to where they want to have us come back, and they want to support us by, you know, buying tickets and buying merchandise and being part of our all access pass and everything like that. So it's really just kind of this building process of not only having the core wrestling fans that we know we're going to get at already, but to build it to more of those other mainstream folks out there. And as you mentioned before, Tyrus, he helps with that in the fact that he's in front of 2 million people every night on Fox.
Yeah.
Now, no matter your political affiliations with it, half the country likes what's coming out of the Fox side of thing, and the other half the country likes the other side of things. So we're appealing to a huge swath.
Half are going to want to see him win, and half are going to want to see him get his ass beat.
Exactly. That's actually what we're seeing a lot out there. Is there's a lot of people out there who, wrestling aside, because of Tyrus being on Fox, they want to see Trevor Murdoch just beat the snot out of him.
That'll happen.
And that's the thing that you'll have there. And you can have that division in a room, and you could see that anywhere that you go. And like, there are certainly people out there that divide a room like that. Nick Aldis is a good example, where there are a lot of people out there that are huge Nick Aldis fans and they cheer for him. There's a lot of people who are tired and they remember all the things that he did in Strictly Business, and they don't want to see Nick Aldis win anymore, and they're going to boo him out of the building. So like, you're getting that dichotomy that's there. But at the end of the day, what we've built is some form of excitement and engagement. And that's what we want. We want people to have an emotion, have a feeling, and express that in the arena and either boo or cheer someone and have a good time doing it. And, hope for an outcome that's more aligned with what their personal truth is, whether they want to see this hometown hero, Trevor Morrow, take out the Manchester Tyrus, or if they want to see Tyrus, show up to Gutfeld with 2 belts on his shoulder, so it's really interesting to see where we're going.
Well, Joe, so August 27th, 28th, NWA 74, you said at the Chase. This is, there's only, I think, 4 or so matches announced. Bully Ray versus Mike Knox. You have the tag team Gauntlet Battle Royal, Murdoch Tyrus, of course. You mentioned Homicide versus Kerry Morton. So far, like that already, just if that is one night on a card, that's a really good card. And there's so much that still has to be announced.
Well, there's nothing that just happened, as we record this just moments ago. Taya Valkyrie becoming the number 1 contender. So she's going to go up against Camille night 1.
Ooh,
and then the winner of that match goes up against whoever wins the Burke Invitational. The only person who's been announced for that so far is Samantha Starr, which is actually the daughter of Baby Doll and Sam Houston. So if you've got a lot of people out there who are into pro wrestling and the history of pro wrestling, Baby Doll's going to be there. She's going to accompany her daughter to the ring and be her manager. I had to just file the paperwork so she could have her manager license. They still have that. That's a shoot for Missouri. They actually do have that. We've got that going on. We're going to be making announcements for our World Tag Team Championships as well. And we've got a lot of other feuds that are going. And what? A wild card that we have now is Nick Aldis, because as all the heat that he's had with Billy Corgan, he still has a contract and he's kind of contractually responsible for wrestling on pay-per-view events. So even though he's not in the world title picture, we're putting him in a spot somewhere, whether he likes it or not. But he's required, he has to wrestle. Otherwise it's a breach of his contract. So we'll see how that's going to develop. I don't like dealing with it. I've had to deal with Nick for enough times. Billy's
I hope
handling
it's someone
it,
he
so Billy's
absolutely
gonna handle
hates.
You know what? Or it could be somebody that he likes and just has a good match with, and then we could all go home happy. I'm fine. I'm fine with that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up and a lot of big announcements that we're going to be making. And then also for your fans out there that happen to be in the St. Louis area, we've got a lot of legends that are going to be coming out as part of our fan fest as well. We've got Barry Windham, JJ Dillon, Baby Doll. They're going to be there. They're going to do the meet and greets. We'll have all of our stars out there as well, signing autographs, all that sort of thing. And then we've also, Tyrus is going to be having a book signing for his book that's there. We were going to do one for Medusa, but her book's not going to come out in time. So Medusa, but stay tuned for that, folks. Medusa has a book coming out, and I hear from the people who have already read it and told me it's actually very good. So I'm actually really interested to see, talk about a person with a huge history. And we're so honored to have as a member of our staff, and not only as an agent, but also as the GM for NWA USA. And it's really cool that just all the stories she has are fantastic. So it's up. And at the end of the day, I also filed paperwork at her insistence to make sure that she was cleared to wrestle at NWA 74. So
Wow.
She made it clear we do not have her booked, but she has the wrestling license and everything. We've done it all.
Oh boy.
So it's an option. We also had to do it with Tim Storm, who's also not booked, but he's going to do commentary. But we went through all the paperwork at his former world champion to get to make some demands.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see that. And then, and also we also have the wild card with Tyrus. He has the television championship. The pay-per-view's on television. One could argue one of these nights he should defend it. So we'll see who's going to want to step up to the Manster as well. And see where's it. Oh, and then the other match that'll be coming up shortly is Jack Stain, our national champion. He'll be defending that championship, and we'll be making an announcement on that very shortly as well. So all of our titles are, and as I mentioned before, our NWA World Women's Tag Team titles will be defended. So we're gonna have a bunch of title matches that are going to be there. Every title is going to be on the line.
Yeah, you need
possibly
two
twice.
nights.
Yeah, possibly twice. And we'll see where it goes from there. And then on top of that, for all of your fans that are in the Nashville area, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is going to be in Nashville for our Monday taping of NWA Power and NWA USA. So he's going to do a little meet and greet. Tickets on sale for that now, and there's just a few left of that because that's going fast because it's the Dragon, baby. Everybody wants to see the Dragon. So that's exciting too, that we're going to be having these legends, not just in St. Louis, but also in Nashville as well. And that's the other great thing about being in the NWA. Think of all the people that, are still around, can have all these great stories and get to come in and share in all of this greatness that surrounds this brand that is the National Wrestling Alliance.
Interesting.
That's amazing. So Joe, thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome.
That Joe,
Gotcha.
not you. Taking the time, talking with us. We appreciate it. We cannot wait for NWA 74 and can't wait to hear more matches that will be announced in the future.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Anybody interesting, just head to nwatix.com. All the info for everything is right there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you and have a great night.
Thanks, buddy.